Hey guys, Camera Doherty here with another tech video. Today we're looking at the Razer Pro Type. It's a $140 keyboard from Razer. It's got mechanical switches and it's focused at a productivity audience. So I've been using this every single day for about 2 months now. And I wanted to make sure I gave it a fair chance and really tried it throughout all of my daily work activities. And this was taking the place of my Logitech MX keys, which I had been using for nearly a year and a half leading up to that point without making any changes. So this was a big leap for me and I didn't really know what to expect. And I'll kind of jump ahead a little bit and let you know the biggest key takeaway here is that this thing, for my taste, is just too darn loud. I'll talk about that more at the end because I want to talk first about the things that I really liked about it. And then I'm going to share 4 things that I think needs improvement and that you should know before you go out and buy one. So the first thing to focus about what I like is just the overall form factor and structure. It's rigid, it's strong, it feels nice, it's solid. The keys have a sort of soft touch material to them that really does feel quite nice when you're typing. The key layout is perfect. There's no complaints there. There's 3 different levels of adjustability. I've found that the highest level, I believe it's 9 degrees, is the one that I like to use the most. And on top of that, the backlighting is beautiful. There's something like 16 levels of backlighting available. It's one of those where it goes down in really small increments and it's almost hard to tell when you're still changing to darkness or to the brightest light available. But it basically means that you can get exactly where you want anywhere on the lighting spectrum, rather than just having a couple options of like a low, medium, high. You can get exactly where you'd like to be. In addition to that, the pairing is a simple process. You can pair with up to 4 devices, and that's 3 on Bluetooth, 1 with the included USB dongle on the back, and then you can also do it through a direct USB-C connection. And so that really actually gives you the ability to do 5 devices, which I think is way more than anybody could possibly need. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. Do you have 5 devices that you pair your keyboard to? Because if so, I want to hear what all of them are. But for me, I primarily have 2 that I use regularly, and then I have a laptop, the MacBook. We've got a couple different things that I'll connect to occasionally, but generally I just have 2 that I'm using regularly. So having the switching for me is huge. If you saw my MX keys video, that was the biggest highlight of that, and I was really excited to see it on this keyboard as an ability to jump back and forth between devices throughout your day, should that be a use case that you have. And the last thing to talk about is the Razer Synapse 3 software. It's a really robust software program that lets you completely customize the way that your keyboard works. You can set up different profiles and specifically map any one of the keys on the keyboard, making the keyboard fully customizable. This was really cool to see, and it was something that I liked to play around with to try out different configurations, but something that ultimately I didn't use a whole ton. And the biggest reason for that is that the Razer Synapse software was actually blocked by my employer, and so I wasn't able to use it on a work device. I was able to use Logitech options with my MX keys, so keep that in mind that if you're really interested in the customization aspect of a keyboard like this, maybe you try and download the software first just to see whether or not your company will allow it on their systems. So that covers all the things that I think were really positives about my 2 months with this keyboard. And now there's 4 things that I wanted to call out to specifically highlight as, we'll call them negatives, but more so things that either Razer can improve over time or things that you just need to know about before you make your purchase decision. And the first one of those is the fact that there is no function lock. And so what that means is that your function row across the top will serve as regular function keys, F1, F2, F3, etc. This means that the ones that are for media keys, play, pause, forward, backwards, the ones that are for volume, the ones that are for brightness, and any other sort of customization that you want to do, those will be set to the function by default. And most other keyboards have a way to not require you to press down that function key anytime you want to use the alternate key. However, for whatever reason, Razer does not have that, even in their Synapse software. And I think that's an easy win for them to just add it. I think it's something that could come over time if they get enough demand. But for right now, It's something that a few of you guys have commented on some of my different keyboard videos about that and the importance of it to some folks. And so keep that in mind if you use the function lock so that you've got access to those media keys readily, or for whatever other use cases you might have, that you know that this does not support it. Now, number 2 is device pairing. So you're probably a little bit confused because I mentioned that in my positives, and it is true. You can connect to a myriad of devices with this keyboard. However, it's too slow. And maybe this is a bit of a first world problem. Maybe you're gonna say I'm overreacting. However, the time it takes to pair to a device, and more importantly, the time it takes to switch between devices adds up to at least a few seconds. And when you're trying to switch over to complete something quickly or just waiting for that pairing connection so that you can enter your password to log in the first time you boot up, in either case, it's extremely frustrating and something that I wasn't used to with other keyboards in the past. So even when it's your primary device, even when you're just reconnecting to the one that you were just using, the previous day or even an hour ago when you come back from lunch, for example, no matter what, there is a lag time as it wakes up and connects to your device. Now, it's probably something to do with battery life management and making sure that it's not connected all the time. However, it does become a pain, especially if you switch devices a lot. And that leads me right into number 3, which is the fact that this keyboard does automatically go to sleep. This is kind of a little bit of a combination of the first two in terms of not enough functionality within that Synapse software. Even though you can do so much, there's still some things that are missing, like that function lock. And number 2, with the device switching. And that's the fact that you can adjust the amount of time until your keyboard goes to sleep within the Synapse software. However, it maxes out at 15 minutes. And basically what this keyboard taught me is that there are a lot of times during my day when I stop typing for more than 15 minutes. Even just reading through and clicking through some emails, if you're not readily using a key on your keyboard to go down or delete or something along the way, you'll quickly notice that your keyboard is asleep. When you finally do go to type something, that first key won't actually be going into your system. It will be waking up the device, which you'll then be met with a few blinks, waiting for it to connect, waiting for it to connect. Finally, it'll connect. And that is extremely frustrating because the number of times where I have received an instant message during the day or something like that, and I hadn't been readily using my keyboard right in that moment, and I go to start typing a reply, and I have to sit and wait for it to connect and then go. And once again, this is really on the first world problem situation here. However, it made me switch to using a wired connection so that I didn't have to deal with that lag time of connecting through Bluetooth. I would much rather be connected through Bluetooth, especially because I work in a pretty well lit room. I don't need the backlight, so my keyboard can last for a while. But in this situation, it just doesn't make any sense to have to sit there and readily be waiting and waiting for it to connect every 15 minutes. So that's a huge one there. But it is not as huge as number 4, which is the sound. And when I first reviewed this, or when I first did an unboxing of this rather, I thought it was okay. Where I film here, I'm in a large kitchen with a living room off to the side with a lot of open space. When I type in this room, it does not sound that bad. But what I quickly realized when I started working from an office is that in a tighter space, this sound is brutally loud. And not only that, it was so loud that even my wife working on another floor of the house was still able to hear my keyboard as I was typing. And that's just crazy, the fact that I would be typing and have to worry about how loud I'm typing for somebody that is on another level of a building. And that means that if you were considering bringing this into an office, I would advise against it. And this requires a little bit of nuance in my explanation here because this is the Razer Pro Type. There is also the Razer Pro Type Ultra, which is not this one. So this one is $140. The Pro Type Ultra is $160. And the two big differences are that the Ultra comes with a padded wrist rest and also a different type of switches. So the Ultra comes with a linear switch, whereas this one comes with a tactile switch. And specifically, these are the orange switches on the Pro Type, and it's the yellow switches, Razer's switches on the Pro Type Ultra. So it's possible that if you go with the Ultra, this might not be as much of a problem. However, what I've found is that the combination of somewhat loud switches with a metal backplate and no sort of sound insulation whatsoever underneath creates, if you have a stronger than average typing force, creates a metallic ping and a bit of just like a reverb that winds up just permeating your room. But what I've found is that I do really enjoy typing on these switches. However, the sound is so loud that it bothers me, it bothers people around me, and it also gets picked up on phone calls. And that's really the worst thing, because the type of work that I do, I'm constantly demoing things, and I'm often typing while I'm also talking, or at least while I'm unmuted on a conference call. And in that type of a scenario, you run into a problem if you've got a keyboard that's either going to overtake your voice or just be an annoyance in the background. And so I wanted to put together a little scenario. Rather than me just typing this with my lapel mic on here, I put together a couple quick scenarios, and I'm going to show what this sounds like through a microphone situation that you might encounter if you're using this as your productivity keyboard, of when it might become a problem. So let's try that. So scenario number one, I'm now recording the audio through my MacBook Air, which is to my side. Thinking this is a realistic simulation around the type of work that I would do. I have a big primary monitor in front of me, and I use the microphone from my laptop alongside it. And so this would be probably a very realistic scenario that somebody might be using this type of audio on a conference call, and they may want to start typing along as they're doing this. And so you can hear immediately, I'm not even typing all that loud, I'm not putting too much pressure on here, but it becomes very apparent that it would become a very big nuisance. And even worse, if you're going to be somebody that types aggressively, then it's going to be horrible to be working with that person, and I do not want to be that person. So scenario number two, I'm going to use the Beats Fit Pros in my ears. So these are some newer headphones from Beats. I've got a review coming out on these very soon. And so you can hear what the audio sounds like from these. So maybe you're thinking, oh, it's just the included microphone on the MacBook. That's the problem. If you're using something in ear, it's going to have some built-in noise suppression, and then that won't be a problem. However, I think it might be even a little bit worse based on my testing. If you were using this as your primary method, it still sounds pretty terrible. And finally, scenario number three, you might be saying, oh, it's okay, I work in a headset. It's got a dedicated microphone close to my mouth, so that won't be a problem. But even this one, you can still hear it in the background, and I was really surprised how much it got picked up, even using a headset as your primary way of talking. So there you go. As you can see, no matter what type of device you're using with a productivity focus, you're expecting that you're going to be at some point typing while you're talking. And in those few different scenarios that I think are going to be really common for most people's working environments, either working directly from your computer's onboard microphone, using headphones, using a headset, those would be three key ways that people are going to be connecting. And in all of them, I think that this keyboard is still too loud to be used in a true work environment. And honestly, the keys themselves aren't really that loud. And so if you are if you're looking for that tactile experience, that tactile keyboard, because you're somebody that limits the press until they feel that small bump, if you can do that, then more power to you. It's not that bad if you can do that, but if you're somebody that really presses them all the way down, in particular, that's when you get this metal backplate that just has that little metallic ping. And I'm not sure whether it's going to come through my microphone or not, but it is definitely something that's audible to me, and that kind of ruins the whole experience when I'm using it. I enjoy typing on it. I want to keep using it. And if I'm ever just there, writing out a document for a long period of time and knowing that I'm not going to be talking with anybody anytime soon, it's still a keyboard that I would enjoy typing on. But I can't really recommend it if you need it to be a quiet keyboard. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean ignore everything from productivity-based Razer keyboards. However, definitely check out some reviews of the Pro Type Ultra and see the slight difference that they get out of the yellow keys rather than the orange keys, because that might be enough to make the difference. However, or I guess in addition there, it seems like Razer may have noticed this problem as well, because as of the time of filming this, this keyboard is showing as out of stock on their website, and also it looks like it's going out of stock on Amazon as well. So that could mean that they realized that this type of key was not good for productivity because it was too loud, or there was some other problem with this one specifically. It does seem like the Pro Type Ultra is still going strong, so if you're considering this, make sure, I would say, you look in that direction unless noise is of no concern. But if it is of no concern, you might be able to snag a deal on the last few of these before they're maybe gone. So keep all of that in mind as you're shopping. I really hope that you enjoyed this look at it. I have tried to give it my best 2-month experience to really find out what is good or bad about using this in a true productivity space. And so, as always, if you enjoy what you see, remember that the likes are always free and the subs don't cost anything either. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.